Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here. Good to be back. I do apologize for missing yesterday's episode as my voice was recovering. It's quite a bit better today. Still a little bit in and out as you'll probably hear, but quite a bit better, and thank you for the patience. I did post an update yesterday on Patreon. Thanks for the good feedback on that as well. But today we're going to be talking about some updates from the White House. Bloomberg's gotten some information from White House aides on what's going on with the White House literally never saying Tesla. We've also got updates from Panasonic, news on Tesla's factory in New York. Take a look at some things out of GM's earnings report yesterday, news from Volkswagen, and a couple other things as well. Not the best day for Tesla stock today, finishing down 2.8% to $905.66. That was despite the NASDAQ actually increasing on the day 0.5%, but it was still a tougher day for growth stocks. The S&P and the Dow both outpaced the NASDAQ. And if we look at some of the other EV stocks, Tesla actually doing relatively well, many of those down between 4 and 8%. And for a little bit more context, ARK's Innovation ETF was down 5% on the day. So in that context, down 2.8%, not too bad. I don't think anything too specifically Tesla today. And it does look like this is going to end up being the lowest volume day so far this year with just over 21 million shares traded. After hours is looking a little bit tougher right now. Facebook, now Meta, did report earnings. Their stock is down about 20% as I'm recording. So that might be creating a bit of a drag on the market. All right, getting into the Tesla-specific news, Bloomberg and Dana Hull, specifically the author of this piece, have definitely noticed that President Biden has not and seemingly will not even say the word Tesla or acknowledge what Tesla has accomplished for EVs in the United States. They've already written a couple articles on this topic, but a new one out today with some information from people directly in the White House, of course, though, off the record. Bloomberg writes, quote, "There's no real mystery behind Biden's antipathy towards Tesla. According to a person familiar with the president's thinking, the president has long enjoyed the support of unions in his political campaigns, including the United Auto Workers, and while Tesla employees enjoyed generous pay and benefits including equity in the carmaker, Musk is hostile towards unions and company workers aren't organized." End quote. So yeah, it isn't surprising, but approaching something like that so nonchalantly, like, oh yeah, this isn't surprising at all because the unions support Biden, so it's totally fine. I'm not saying that's what Bloomberg is trying to express. I'm just saying that it's unfortunate that that is not a bigger story. I've had a few people, especially international listeners, ask why this is kind of the case for US politics and if the UAW really has all that much power. And I think the next part of this article explains that pretty succinctly. It reads, quote, "Within Tesla, there is a feeling among some executives that all of this is just politics. Biden will never win Texas, where Musk now lives, while Michigan, home to Ford and GM, and UAW support is key to Democratic victories both in upcoming midterm elections and in 2024, end quote. And they don't mention California there, but similar logic with California being so Democratic that it's not viewed as a risk of loss. Now, I think there's probably a little bit of miscalculating there in Texas. I think Democrats actually would have had potential there, especially with a lot of migration from Californians, but don't want to get too deep into the politics. Everyone can have their own thoughts on that. I don't follow that super closely anyway. But it's just kind of sad to see these tactics at work. And even if there is interest in supporting the UAW, supporting Ford and GM, it's sad to see that there is a feeling that that has to be done at the expense of Tesla and not just in conjunction with also supporting Tesla, which is fulfilling a lot of the goals that this administration said were important to them. Anyway, continuing on with some of the comments from the White House, quote, "Even some Biden aides say they wish the boss would warm to Musk's company. Quote, bums me out as a satisfied Tesla owner," one said. "The White House officials who spoke for the story all asked not to be identified because of the sensitivity of the issue," end quote. So a lot of off-the-record comments there. Bloomberg was actually able to get something on the record from a White House official, and they actually did say the word Tesla. Very rare to see. I'm not sure we've seen it at all in prepared remarks before, but spokesperson Emily Simons for the White House said, quote, "Tesla has done extraordinary things for electric vehicles, and that's a big part of why the whole industry now knows EVs are the future," end quote. Hey, some acknowledgement. It's not really that hard, and it probably didn't really change anything politically either. You can very easily say that and also be supportive of unions and say that you want Tesla to unionize or whatever else. It's just so weird to blatantly ignore Tesla, and frustrating then when that credit for things that Tesla has done gets just sort of by default handed off to companies like Ford or GM. The most recent eyebrow raiser, and I think this one's actually a little bit more justified, is that President Biden invited both Ford and GM CEOs, as well as other CEOs, to help build support for the Build Back Better plan, which, as we've talked about, has been tabled, probably will have to be broken up into smaller pieces. But that was the plan that housed changes to the EV tax credit structure. So anyway, Ford and GM invited, Tesla obviously not, but I don't really think that's surprising in that case because Elon has said that he's not a fan of the Build Back Better plan. So seems a little bit more justified than some of the other stuff that has gone on. Emily Simon's basically saying that same thing to Bloomberg, saying, quote, Simon said the Thursday event at the White House was for business leaders who support Build Back Better. GM Sparrow recently became chair of the Business Roundtable, a lobby group in Washington that, like Musk, opposes Build Back Better, but Barra has said she personally supports the measure, end quote. So I don't know, kind of possibly weird there, but the Business Roundtable does have a lot of different stances on a lot of different policies, so I can see how that could be possible. Anyway, right around that meeting, President Biden had also tweeted out a video with Mary Barra talking about GM's investment in electric vehicles, with Biden again commenting that so-called companies like GM and Ford are building more electric vehicles here at home than ever before. Elon replied to that tweet saying starts with a T, ends with an A, ESL in the middle. We'll move on from this topic in a second, but just pointing that out because I did see on Reddit today, someone posted a photo of this tweet and the caption of "Just Say It" on a billboard in Times Square. And I know there's a petition going around trying to get President Biden to say Tesla as well. So just a mess all around, seemed quite easily avoidable, and we'll see what happens from here. One other quick thing on the topic of Tesla and Washington. Some of you may have seen that the NFL team, most recently known as the Washington football team, they have selected a new name. They're going to be the Commanders. Not really relevant to us, but as a part of their brand unveiling, they have a bunch of Tesla vehicles, Model Ys, driving around Washington with Commanders decals on them and handing out new merchandise. So at least Tesla getting a little bit of attention somewhere in Washington. Next, while we're on Bloomberg, just wanted to touch on one other article from them today. This one is about a response to one of those shareholder class action lawsuits against the going private funding secured saga. Nothing too new here, but interesting to see one of the responses from Musk's attorney on this case, saying, quote, Elon Musk's August 7, 2018 tweet informing the public that he was considering taking Tesla private was entirely truthful. Mr. Musk was considering taking Tesla private at $420 a share. Funding was secured. There was investor support, end quote. All right, next we've got an update from Panasonic. They have reported earnings and given an update on the status of their 4680 development. As we had reported previously, they do say that they expect to start trial production this year, sometime early in their fiscal year, which begins in April, according to their chief financial officer. But a Panasonic spokeswoman said that a time and place for mass production have not yet been decided upon. So it does sound like 4680s from Panasonic would still be quite a ways away, but as Tesla talked about on the Q4 earnings call, they are not reliant on that 4680 external volume this year for their production targets. Now that probably changes heading into next year, so hopefully Panasonic makes really good progress on getting ready for that this year. They did say that, quote, Tesla has put in an extremely strong request for the 4680, so when we are actually able to deliver the 4680, we plan to put top priority on Tesla, end quote. No surprise on priority, but Panasonic saying extremely strong request, that should emphasize how Tesla plans to keep growing, even with the market concerned about some of the comments on the Q4 call, which based on Musk's comments on the $25,000 model, seems to have called into question some of that longer term growth, which as we have discussed, I think is being misinterpreted. Next, we've got a rare update on Tesla's Gigafactory in Buffalo, New York. This is the factory that Tesla got in the SolarCity acquisition. Tesla now uses it for solar as well as things like building superchargers, but this was a factory that had received state funding, so oftentimes when we are talking about it, it's in relation to jobs requirements and investment requirements that were required as a part of that funding. So most recently, by the end of 2021, Tesla had a job requirement of 1,460 jobs. They have now filed that as of the end of the year, they had 1,636 jobs, so a little bit more than 10% above the requirement. As for the investment requirement, Tesla was required to invest about $440 million, and so far they have invested over $1 billion. So all good on both those metrics, and that means no fine from the state. All right, next up, as mentioned last week, GM did report earnings yesterday. A few quick items in there that I did want to highlight. The first of which is that GM's fourth quarter net income was about $1.7 billion. This actually was below Tesla's fourth quarter net income, which was $2.3 billion. So Tesla made more money than GM in Q4. Now for the year, GM did still out-earn Tesla, about $10 billion to $5.5, but it is possible that we see Tesla overtake GM on that metric for the year this year. GM did say that they expect their EBIT adjusted earnings to remain at or near record levels in the range of $13 billion to $15 billion for the year. Tesla's EBIT earnings for 2021 was $8.7 billion. So based on GM's guidance, I certainly think that for 2022, Tesla's earnings before interest and taxes will exceed GM's. I think the other noteworthy thing from GM was on the earnings call, they addressed their electric vehicle targets, saying that they have a target to deliver 400,000 EVs in North America over the course of 2022 and 2023. Now, a little bit of the headlines on that may have been confusing, so they are saying there that is over 2 years rather than 400,000 per year. But again, that is just North America. They did also note that they do intend to have the annual capacity for more than 1 million EVs in North America by the end of 2025, including capacity for 600,000 full-size trucks. And they do say that this is in addition to more than 1 million units of EV capacity in China over the same time frame. So GM over the next slightly less than 4 years, expecting to add capacity for about 2 million EVs. I think a lot of these announcements and these targets that we're hearing from other automakers are really heightening again that competition is coming angle. We're now in that period where other people have introduced EVs, but now that refrain seems to have shifted to, yeah, they've made some EVs, but not really in volume. We'll see what happens then when they're producing in volume. And I think some of those things combined with some of Tesla's comments about the $25,000 model, as well as the comments on the Cybertruck, I think that is taking away a little bit of confidence in where Tesla is eventually going to end up and leading to some of that earnings compression that we've been talking about happening maybe a little bit more quickly. Anyway, the last thing on GM is that they did say, quote, "Importantly, battery cells will not be a constraint to our long-term EV growth," end quote. Next, we've got an update on Volkswagen, kind of similar here on capacity. Nikkei Asia is reporting that Volkswagen passenger car CEO, Rolf Brandstetter, told them that they are expecting capacity for, quote, "as many as 1 million electric vehicles a year in China in 2023, end quote. Now, a target that says as many as instead of at least isn't really quite as meaningful. But again, this goes along the same point about the perception of competition heating up. Speaking of competition, a little bit more coverage of a possible Apple car over the last couple of days. Motor Trend yesterday putting out a piece noting an approval of a new patent for Apple on a vehicle's sunroof. However, this patent was applied for back in 2016. It was modified in October of 2020. So yes, we've known Apple's been exploring that. No, all companies don't pursue everything that they patent, especially a company like Apple. So not much news there in my opinion. All right, last couple of things here. First, just a quick update on SpaceX. They have launched a new premium version of Starlink. So this is a second product offering. It's got a new, larger antenna. And SpaceX says that users of Starlink Premium can expect download speeds of 150 to 500 megabits per second and latency of 20 to 40 milliseconds, enabling high throughput connectivity for small offices, storefronts, and super users across the globe. Pricing here, pretty simple. Basically costs 5 times what non-premium Starlink costs. So the equipment cost is $2,500 and the service cost is $500 per month. Should be a pretty strong margin product for SpaceX, I would imagine, helping them get back those infrastructure launch costs more quickly. All right, lastly then, just wanted to point out a new video from the Tesla China team. So a bit of marketing and kind of different than what we've seen from Tesla, kind of a story-driven piece here. So interesting to see, seemed to resonate with some people, not quite as much with me. But if you are interested in checking that out, I'll put a link to that down in the description. All right, that'll wrap it up for today then. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you're subscribed and signed up for notifications. You can also find me on Twitter at Tesla Podcast. And we'll see you tomorrow for the Thursday, February 3rd episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.